Welcome, Avatar. This will be another beginner-friendly high-level video that will explain why you should care about crypto. We realize that many people have limited experience with institutional investors, so this should help you get to the aha moment where you realize the game is rigged. In simple terms, large asset owners get preferential treatment while the average person gets treated much worse. Part 1. Inflation solidifies the wealthy elite. Inflation. We've stated since early last year that the numbers on inflation are cooked. Even though the official number today is 7.5%, in reality it is easily closer to 20%. For a better view of inflation, we suggest looking at this chart, which represents the inflation numbers if we used the same basket of items from the 1970s, before significant tech products were added that are naturally deflationary, since the entire job of tech is to reduce costs. We'll take an aggressive stance and say that anyone who believes it is 7.5% is simply not living life. Food, utilities and housing costs are all up much more than 7.5% for anyone who pays their own bills. That said, we want to keep the example easy, so a newbie will understand how the big scam works. Inflation at 7.5%. In simple terms, inflation means the rising cost of anything you buy. If you used to spend $100 a month on something, it will now cost you $107.50 in the following year. Scale this up, and if you spend $100,000 a year in total expenses, it means next year you will be paying $107,500. All of these numbers are after taxes, which means if you want to live the exact same life next year, you need to pull in 7.5% more money after taxes. If you haven't, then you will now have a lower standard of living in terms of purchasing power. Doesn't that impact everyone the same? Nope, that's the entire scam. While many may hear this and say, well, everyone rich and poor has to make 7.5% more, it simply isn't true. The reason for this is low interest rate debt. Here are the simple maths. You get the chance to borrow money at 3%. This means you can borrow, say, $100,000 at 3% for the next 30 years and lock in the interest rate. Sure, you have to pay $3,000 a year, however you can take that $100,000 and invest in anything that goes up with inflation over a 30-year timeframe, such as a home or even the stock market. Inflation is 7.5% and your payments are 3%, so if you simply buy an inflation hedge, you made 4.5%. While you are borrowing money, the interest rate is so low that inflation gives you a bigger and bigger valuation. You buy a home worth $1 million, and it is now worth $1,075,000, while you paid only $30,000 in interest. Here is a clear graphic of how a rich asset person gets further and further ahead. As you can see from this example, BlackRock takes a $100 million loan at a 3% rate in order to acquire assets. With an inflation rate at 7.5% and the interest rate at 3%, the difference is 4.5%, which means the asset will increase with $4,500,000. Now compare this to regular Joe, who only saw an increase of $4,000. Crushing the middle class. As you can see, each year, asset owners get wealthier relative to the middle class. Yes, even if you are a high-earning person, since wealth is not the same as income. If you're a rich institution like BlackRock, you can borrow more money and get a lower rate as well. This is how the game works. While the rich guy feels like he's getting ahead, the mega corporations are getting even further ahead. The gap is increasing. Before Bitcoin, there was no solution to part 1. Your only choice was to play in the same rigged economic game, where the rich get richer with both assets and low interest rates. This actually explains why corporate politics is so prolific. If you can manipulate a wealthy person's emotions, you got the promotion and had a better chance at closing the gap. This is why politics always wins over performance in mega legacy companies. A fantastic example of this is investment banking. If you're in investment banking, this is good for you since you can get the top bucket rating without doing much work. Just get the highest paid managing director to like you, since he'll be loved politically, and ignore the underperformers. Part 2. Need for a new financial system. Until the creation of Bitcoin, there has been no alternative to the current financial system. The ideal store of value would purchase the same amount of goods and services this year as it will in 10 years. While this is practically impossible as demand for goods and services go up and down, it should be a possibility for necessities like food, water, electricity, and rent. New economic system. If you tried to exit the current financial system, there was no alternative. In fact, if you try to protest or crowdsource money in Canada, they will even block you with no civil penalties.
As of today, a bank or other financial service provider will be able to immediately freeze or suspend an account without a court order. In doing so, they will be protected against civil liability for actions taken in good faith.
Now, there is no excuse. You can use cryptocurrencies as an insurance policy against the constant money printing. If you think that governments will continue to print money and potentially take you out of the financial system, you need at least some insurance against that. If protecting your hard-earned money is not important to you, then we don't have time to convince you. Graphical depiction of potential. You don't even need to believe in crypto to invest in it. Simply take a step back and look at how many users the industry has, and ask yourself, are users going to go up or down? If you answered up, then you're forced to buy since the supply is capped. If you believe users of crypto will go down, then you shouldn't buy them. Here is an explanation of the potential. 1. 4.6% of total assets are held by millennials. 2. 53% of assets are held by boomers. And 3. 94% of crypto buyers are Gen Z or millennials. The current USA wealth is around $120 trillion. Now for the quick math and why you should care even if you don't believe in it that much. If we assume the boomer generation passes on their wealth to millennials, that's 53% of the $120 trillion, which is $63.6 trillion. As you can see, if we know that 94% of all crypto buyers are Gen Z and millennials, the question is, how much of the inheritance will be invested into crypto? We know that it will be more than zero. For fun, even if 10% of the money goes to crypto, you're looking at a 159% return. As a note, we're aware that this is not perfect math as people will sell if prices go up or down like any market. It is simply to provide an example. Where will the $63.6 trillion end up? Part 3. Keeping it simple. Take a step back and ask yourself what the guiding principle was for every single good investment. It wasn't PE ratio, it wasn't value investing. It was the following: will more people use this? When Google purchased YouTube, they were laughed at. Now it does around $20 billion in annual revenue, and they don't even make the videos. They guessed correctly that more and more people would be watching videos, and created a monopoly around it. Back when Facebook bought WhatsApp and Instagram, they were also laughed at. Once again, the herd was wrong. User growth exploded and the deals were a steal. Now it is up to you. We know the following. 1. Inflation is higher than the interest rate that rich people pay. 2. We know that more restrictions are coming. Look at Canada. This means your account could be locked. 3. We know that the 94% of crypto buyers are the younger generation, and the boomers currently control 53% of the wealth. And 4. We know that governments are printing tons of money with no way to repay it, and you don't even get to vote on it. Now the question is, should you buy financial insurance? Your call.